Lethal Weapon, the ultimate explosive cop buddy action movie directed by Richard Donner and produced by Joel Silver. Released in 1987, it tells the story of two completely different types of police officers being partnered up together. One being the dangerous and out of control and often suicidal Riggs, played by Mel Gibson, and the other being the more by-the-books, calm and caring family man Roger Murtaugh, played by Danny Glover. It goes without saying that these two clashings of characters results in conflict, as Riggs and Murtaugh can't seem to see eye to eye. However, the two cops must learn to put their differences aside and work together as they investigate a strange suicide, which leads them to a very powerful and dangerous drug ring, where all manner of explosive action ensues. These days, we seem to be hell-bent on asking if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, while we completely forget about Lethal Weapon, the other action movie of the late 80s also set around this holly jolly time of the year. Well, regardless, today we are going to look into 10 things that you didn't know about Lethal Weapon. Let's check it out.
Raj, meet your new partner.
I'm too old for this shit.
Number 10. Lethal Weapon was going to be a lot darker. Despite some of Lethal Weapon's more grim subject matter, it is essentially just a fun cop buddy movie, an enjoyable piece of popcorn entertainment. However, the original script was much darker and way more serious. The script was written by Shane Black, who also wrote The Monster Squad and had a role in Predator. And his original script was more like Dirty Harry, in that it was about a brutal cop who everyone fears and despises for his tactics, who is often used as his approach to get the job done often works, who must team up with a more average everyday cop, where the two must solve a mystery in LA, of which Black describes as being an urban western. The original script consisted of 140 pages and had an ending which consisted of a truck of cocaine exploding with all the cocaine snowing over the Hollywood sign. Number 9. Lethal Weapon may have been very different if it wasn't for Three Men and a Baby. Shane Black took his script to Warner Brothers and they were interested and brought it for $250,000, where producer Joel Silver, who previously produced Predator and would go on to produce Die Hard, loved the script and got involved as the movie's producer. And the original choice for directing the movie was, interestingly, none other than Spock himself, Leonard Nimoy. However, Nimoy didn't feel comfortable directing an action movie as he had never directed one before, so he found the idea illogical and went on to direct Three Men and a Baby instead. That cutesy comedy involving a baby, which would go on to become more famous for its background ghost in the curtains, which turned out to be a cardboard cutout of Ted Danson. Most illogical indeed. Number 8. Richard Donner took a more humorous, lighthearted approach to Lethal Weapon. Richard Donner has a well-respected career in the movie-making industry, and before making Lethal Weapon had already directed many classics, such as The Omen, Superman the Movie, and The Goonies, and Warner Brothers were keen to get him involved in Lethal Weapon, in which he did like the script, but found it very dark and wanted the tone to be lighter with more humour injected, aka Lethal Weapon as we all know and love it. He brought in Lost Boys and Inner Space writer Jeffrey Boehm to do uncredited rewrites to the script, where it became less Dirty Harry and more fun, explosive, comical action movie. Now that's not saying that Lethal Weapon isn't a serious movie, because it does have its dark and bleak moments, but I think you can tell that Donner just wanted to have some fun with Lethal Weapon and to turn up its enjoyability. Number 7. Riggs was nearly played by another action movie star. Acclaimed actor Danny Glover was cast as Roger Murtaugh, the more refined and respectable part of the cop buddy duo, who does things more by the books. Glover was cast in the role thanks mainly due to his performance in Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple, which just came out 2 years earlier. As for the more tougher and rough around the edges Martin Riggs, an actor who was considered was Bruce Willis. In fact, the fact that Willis could have played Riggs in Lethal Weapon was the subject of an in-joke in the Lethal Weapon spoof, Loaded Weapon, in that villains shoot a beach caravan like Riggs, but it turns out it's Bruce Willis's John McClane who lives there. Shane Black's original choice for the role was William Hurt, but his choice was rejected by the studio. Mel Gibson came at the request of Donner, who wanted to work with the actor for a while, and when Gibson auditioned, it was clear that he had amazing chemistry with Glover, to which everyone on board was enthusiastic with the casting. And 1 year later, Bruce Willis would go on to star in Die Hard, which was also produced by Joel Silver, set at Christmas time, where Willis, like Riggs, was a hot-headed cop who doesn't play by the rules. In fact, Mel Gibson was even considered to play John McClane before Willis was cast. Could it be that Riggs and McClane are actually one and the same? I've asked that question before, haven't I? Number 6, the physical transformation of Gary Busey. When it came time to casting the movie's villain, Jack Joshua, who was like a brutal henchman type character who is described as being big and menacing, Busey decided to audition for the role. At the time, his popularity was on a decline thanks to starring in some movies that weren't too successful, and he wanted to specifically work with the cast and crew of Lethal Weapon. He was also intrigued with the idea of playing a movie villain, which he had never done before. So in order to prepare himself, Busey lost a staggering 60 pounds, where when you watch Lethal Weapon, you can see that the guy is actually in amazing shape. Both Busey and Gibson had to do extensive martial arts training, which would take up to 4 hours a day, in which they would even have to train on set in between takes. But regardless, Lethal Weapon gave Busey a newfound career in the action movie genre, and he would go on to star in Predator 2 and Point Break. Number 5, music collaboration. American composer Michael Kamen was brought on board to score Lethal Weapon. At the time, Kamen was becoming the go-to guy of scoring action movies, as he would also go on to score Die Hard, License to Kill, and Roadhouse. Kamen had just come off working on Highlander when he got to work on Lethal Weapon, and in order to achieve some of the street grit that he wanted with some of the music, particularly Riggs' accompanying theme, he teamed up with British rock legend Eric Clapton to help with the score, as the two had previously worked on the BBC miniseries The Edge of Darkness. And both Kamen and Clapton would go on to work on the music for the following 3 Lethal Weapon sequels. Interestingly, the movie doesn't start with Kamen or Clapton's intense music in order to set the mood, but rather with the jolly tune of Jingle Bell Rock, a 1957 Christmas song by country singer Bob Helms. Of which I think the happy and upbeat music is meant to contrast with the modern dark and gritty LA scenery. Number 4, promoting Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon was given a very interesting movie poster, which is just a close-up black and white picture of Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. Not that there's anything wrong with the poster, it just doesn't say anything about the movie. I mean, looking at it, you wouldn't know if it was an action movie, or a comedy movie, or a Christmas movie. It kind of reminds me of the original Highlander poster, that just had a creepy black and white photo of Christopher Lambert. And as with that poster, once again, it just doesn't say anything about the movie. However, parts of the world would get this alternative poster, which looks like it was taken from the same shoot as the other poster. But damn, just the smaller differences just makes it a better poster. In my humbles, of course. For a start, both Gibson and Glover look way more badass in this pic and like they are ready for action, unlike the other one where they are just awkwardly staring at the camera. Having these expressions on their faces sets up that these two guys are gonna get in on some action. And having the picture in colour also helps. Some variants of this poster even added some of the action scenes from the movie, to once again make the movie seem more energetic and action orientated, which is a nice touch. It's just an opinion, but just having a few minor changes shows how you can have a mundane poster to a pretty cool badass one. Number 3, release. Lethal Weapon was released in March 1987, nowhere near around Christmas time, but it was still big business when it came out. It opened up at the number 1 spot in the box office, where it would go on to make $120 million on a $15 million budget. Critics loved it too. Roger Ebert gave it great praise, stating that Richard Donner had topped himself. Some critics did notice the absurdity of the script in certain places, but also said that the movie's fun energy makes up for that. It is often said that Lethal Weapon started the cop buddy genre, which led to the creation of such movies as Tango and Cash, Rush Hour, and Hot Fuzz. Although I would argue that that honour probably belongs to 48 Hours. Lethal Weapon was at the #1 spot for 3 weeks, till Blind Date came along and knocked it off. The irony is Blind Date also starred Bruce Willis, who was considered for Riggs and would go on to star in Die Hard as mentioned. Just look at his face on the poster. It's like he knows he's knocking Lethal Weapon off its pedestal. Yeah, look, seriously, look at that face. It's like he knows that despite the fact that Blind Date would go on to be a failure, his time to shine in a Joel Silver Christmas action movie was coming soon. Number 2, Legacy. So Lethal Weapon was so big, it'll go on to become a franchise. So what did I think of the sequels and other spin-offs? Well, allow me to give my quick 2 cents on them. First off, I really like Lethal Weapon 2, probably more so than the first one. The character development between Riggs and Murtaugh continues to grow and be explored, and I think the action and writing is just generally better this time round. It's like they took what worked for the first movie and polished it up and perfected it. And it's definitely a contender for a future episode. However, for me, Lethal Weapon 3 is where things start to fall apart. Whereas the first 2 movies had an even blend of serious action and comedy, I felt this time round the action was taking a back seat to more goofball comedy, of which I didn't find particularly funny. This time Riggs is just a joke, a cartoon character who is no longer the tragic broken man with an edge, but a buffoon who now eats dog biscuits and raw onions. And the movie even starts off with him comically cutting the wrong wire of a bomb, causing a building to explode. Good going, Riggs? Seriously, what are we meant to take from that? Joe Pesci was also starting to get on my nerves at this point, and that's saying something as I'm a Joe Pesci fan. Then there was the 4th movie, and once again, the action totally takes a back seat. I think that Richard Donner loved these characters that he helped to create, but maybe more than the viewer, as I felt that he was more focused on following the character's day-to-day life than the spectacle of an action movie, making the 4th entry kind of feel like a cinematic episode of a daytime soap drama. And the ending where we get that comical double birth scene followed by that line where all the characters say, "We're not friends, we're family," I just found to be really cringy. And of course the series has recently been rebooted into a TV series, of which I haven't seen any of it, so I can't really comment, and I don't really have any interest in seeing it. But from what I hear, people either love it or hate it. And the show also seems to often change its cast members. So my analysis is that I'm just going to stick with the first 2 movies, everything afterwards is just meh. Number 1, Alternative Beginning. Lethal Weapon has an alternative beginning sequence that was shot but incidentally never used. It didn't even make it into the director's cut, which, by the way, apparently isn't really a director's cut, but a marketing ploy to capitalize on adding deleted scenes, but whatever. The alternative beginning sees Riggs drinking his sorrows away at a bar, where he uses the restroom while looking at his reflection in shame, where upon leaving, 2 thugs try to mug him. Okay, these have to be the most brazen thugs ever. They don't even wait for Riggs to stumble out into a dark alley. Nope, these guys are like, to hell with that. We'll just mug this guy smack bang right in the middle of the bar for all those to see. And of course, Riggs beats the crap out of them, where the bar owner tells Riggs that he's got to stop going to the bar as it causes too much trouble. Sheesh, victim blaming much? Yeah, Riggs, just let the baddies mug you next time. I actually really like Gibson's acting in this scene, but yeah, as you can tell, I have issues with some of the writing. A scene that was used in the final film that gives us an insight into Riggs' psyche was much more subtle, and yet, through Gibson's acting, we can tell that this guy is in pain and dangerous. So the movie is better off for deleting this scene, but it's still fun for curiosity's sake. So that was my look into Lethal Weapon. It's a fun, energetic action movie with great and interesting characters, and definitely a film that all lovers of 1980s cinema should check out. And it's also a good companion piece double bill to watch with Die Hard. Heck, the two movies even feel like they could exist in the same universe. Anyway, I'm Minty, and now that I've thought about it, the movie actually starts with Murtaugh's 50th birthday. So I guess you could say that technically it's as much a birthday movie as it is a Christmas one. See ya!